Well, good morning. It is Monday, December 21st, 2020. I'm Pastor Thor Ramsey with Center Church. This is Gospel for Five, where we take 5 minutes out of our day and focus on the gospel because Jesus is the gospel. We've been going through the book of Galatians. As you know, if you're a regular with us, we're in chapter 4. We basically finished at verse 19 last week. My little children, for whom I am again in the anguish of childbirth, until Christ is formed in you. The issue being here that, again, the theme of Galatians is grace plus nothing. That's our salvation, is we're saved by grace, God's unmerited favor bestowed upon us through Jesus Christ and his work, his life, his death, his burial, his resurrection. Grace plus nothing is how we are made right with the creator of the universe. And Paul went to the Galatians, these Gentiles. He preached that. They accepted it. And then these false believers came in, these false Christians called Judaizers, who were preaching that not only did you have to believe in Jesus, but you also had to be circumcised in order to be a true Christian. So it was grace plus something. And the Galatians were falling for that. And now Paul's really saying, what then has become of your blessedness? Because they've really put themselves back under the law. Whereas it is for freedom that Christ has come to set us free. And the law now is not an obligation, but a delight, an expression of our souls to our love for our Father in heaven. I wish I could be present with you now and change my tone, for I'm perplexed about you. So Paul's tone in this letter is a little different than most of his other letters. If you examine just the opening segments, I don't know if we covered that in the beginning, but basically Paul would begin his other letters with some positives about those he is writing to. I think even a congregation as troubled as the Corinthians, Paul, let me go look here, opens with some laudatory comments. Our hope for you is unshaken, for we know that you share in our sufferings, you will also share in our comforts, etc. Again, even a congregation as troubled as the Corinthian church. But in Galatians, Paul just gets right to the issue. I'm astonished that you're so quickly deserting the gospel, basically. So that's his concern for them. Because as we mentioned last week, once you enter into a legalistic spirit, even as a true Christian, it changes your tone. It changes your Christian life. It changes your witness to the world and your witness to the church. Become what? You become about, it becomes about rules. Christians should do these things and not do these things. Now, granted, there's truth in that. Christians should do certain things and not do other things. But the legalistic spirit attaches acceptance with God to those things. It attaches blessing with God to those things. It attaches significance to the self with those things, which is all a type of law. If you look to the older brother in the prodigal son story, that's the classic legalist, someone who'd done everything his father wanted, but never had really enjoyed the blessings of being in his father's household. And that is the tragedy of the legalistic spirit. It robs us of enjoyment of God. I think John Piper, I know it's John Piper. I'm trying to think of his saying, but anyway, a paraphrase of John Piper's famous saying goes this: God is most pleased in us when we're most pleased in him, is the idea. God is most glorified in us, I think is what he says, when we're most pleased in him, when we find the pleasure of our lives in the Lord of the universe itself. In other words, when we find, unlike the older brother in the prodigal son story, delight in being in the Father's house and being part of the Father's kingdom and being part of the church and being a Christian in this world, when we find our delight in that, in our relationship with God, he's most glorified in us. But the older brothers of the world don't do that. The legalists of the world don't do that. So that's why he's saying he's really taking a strong tone with them, because he wants them to wake up and see this false gospel they've embraced. Even though they're true Christians, they've embraced a false view of the Christian life.